What's up, everybody? This is John the Drummer here, and welcome to my 2017 edition of the walkthrough of my drum set. I've been doing this almost every year, and this one's going to be a little different. This one I'm actually going to be showing off my recording setup, my microphone placement, the hardware and software that I use to record my drum tracks here at home. So, let's get started. I guess we'll get the drums out of the way first. Everything is pretty much the same from how I've had it. Got all Sabian cymbals. I'll go into detail about that in a sec. Remo drum heads on everything. Mapex drums. My hardware, it's kind of a mix of a Gibralter, Premier, Mapex. So let's go into depth on my cymbals. Sabian cymbals, as I said. This one here is an AA Metal X hi-hat. I've had this thing for years, still sounds great. Gets the job done. Right here is a 17-inch AAX Explosion China, I believe. Explosion Chinese, yep. Right here is a cute little B8 Splash. 6 inches. I've had this thing for many years, and it's barely starting to crack right in the center. Up here is an AAX Explosion Crash, an AAX Air Splash, which I just love the tone of this thing. Over here is just an AAX Basic Splash. On this side, we have an AAX Explosion Crash, AA Metal Chinese, not Metal X anymore, just metal. And this guy is as worn out as ever. This used to say it was a 20-inch AA Metal X ride. I moved my ride up quite a bit, so my ride used to probably be about this low, but I moved it up. It's just so much easier to just rock out on. It just feels more comfortable where it's at, and it's quite a ways up there too, if you can't tell. For my drums and my toms, as I said in the beginning, they're all Remo heads. I'm just doing, pretty standard Emperor heads on the top. On the bottom, I have ambassadors. So we got a 10-inch, a 12, a 13, and a 16 on the floor tom. For my snare, I actually have a Mapex Black Panther sledgehammer snare. This thing is just phenomenal sounding. It's really heavy too. But for the head, we have the coated Ambassador, which super thin, one-ply head, has a nice crack, but also a good amount of depth to it too if you tune it just right. I forgot to mention my drums, that they are the Mapex VX series with a glossy black finish to them. Kind of hard to pick up on my camera. Hopefully you guys can see it good enough though. My drumsticks are Vater 5B. I've been using these guys for years. They're not too heavy, not too light, they're just perfect. Down here, so I'll get to what this whole weird setup is all about when I talk about my recording setup. But down here, we got my Axis longboard pedals with still using the Axis E-kits, which they take place of the rim-mounted triggers like what D-Drum and Roland have. This is the trigger, your drum hits, the hammer is supposed to hit the box, and it sets the trigger off. So that is basically it for my drum set. Sabian cymbals, Remo heads, Mapex drums. Pretty much the same thing that I've been using for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm pretty sure the last video is pretty similar to this. So now that the drums have been covered, let's talk about the recording setup. My microphones, my software, all that fun stuff. So for my microphones, I introduced these in my last video, I just didn't have them set up though. But I have Audix microphones. Got the D2s on all the rack toms, have the D4 on my floor tom, and down here on my snare I have an I5, or I believe So let's say ADX51 on the overheads. Now, I want to cover this real fast. So, first off, I've been injured for the last almost 6 months now. My wrist is just not doing too well. But I'm slowly getting back into drumming, and my funeral doom band, Mesmer, I'll have a link down in the description. We're recording our second full-length album. And, you know, Funeral Doom, for those of you that don't know, just very slow, melodic, depressing metal. So it's really good to play that kind of music to get myself back into drumming shape. And, you know, there's no blast beats at all, so it's good, straightforward music. So anyway, in my previous recordings that I've done for this project and other projects I've recorded at home, we could pick up the bass drums still. Obviously, I mean, they're just filled with pillows and stuff, but the overheads will still pick them up. And if my guitarist ever wanted to cut any out or make any little edits, you know, he could cut out the trigger, but you could still hear it over the overheads. So, I'm using my bass drum practice pads, which my bass drums just connect right to them. And this gets rid of that extra sound that the overhead microphones pick up from the actual bass drums getting hit. So now instead of like a big thump, it's just a... And it really does not pick up on the overhead microphones. And so a lot of people might think this is cheating, you know, you shouldn't have to edit the drums that much, but, you know, just if we have to, it really, really helps. So back up top here, I got all my toms mic'd in, you know, pretty standard positions. Nothing too wacky or out of the way, just tom right there, picks up right there, right there, right there. The only thing that's a little different is my snare microphone. So, little backstory is that I used to have it set up right here in the middle. But, of course, you know, when you're doing like a drum fill, you're gonna hit the microphone, unless you really reach over it. And so I moved it about right in this position here when I recorded my last album. And it was still frustrating to have it right there in that spot. So today, actually, I did a little bit of drumming just to kind of warm myself up. And I thought, you know, I put the microphone pretty much off to the side completely, a little more south of, you know, the center. And that seems to be the perfect spot, because when the microphone was here, when I'd reach to do a drum fill from Tom 1, I just hit the microphone. Not all the time, but, you know, it was in the way. But right here, it might look like it's in the way a little bit, but the way I drum, it's perfect right there. I can hit the hi-hat fine, I can do a drum fill fine, everything just feels great. For my overheads, I have them roughly 3 feet above the top of my cymbals, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, and they're spread pretty far apart as well. Having them up here is just the basic setup. It gets you a good stereo, you know, left and right, and it picks up, you know, this one will mainly pick up everything on this side, this one picks up everything on this side with the snare just about directly in the middle. So I like it that way. If, you know, if any of you guys prefer a different way, you can discuss it in the comments, but that's basically it. So that's my microphone setup. Nothing too crazy other than my snare and how I have my bass drums set up. Now, if I didn't mention enough already, when I record, I don't actually record the physical bass drums. I only record triggers. It's easier to edit, it's easier to work with. So now to finish off this episode, let's hop over to the electronics, the software and the hardware that I actually record everything on. We'll get started over here at the far left with my drum trigger brain, my drum module, whatever you want to call it. The tone I use is called YOLO Swag 666. You can find it on there. Not really. But it's actually the speed metal tone, which I have tuned to that. I used to use the reggae tone for quite a few years. The sound guy from Exodus told me to try it out, but I'm happy with the speed metal. It's the good, it's the basic, everybody uses it, so why not? The recording interface that I've been using is the Presonus Audiobox 1818 VSL. Been using this thing for a good 2, maybe 3 years now. Maybe even 4. Crap. Anyway, so it's great. Just got 8 inputs in the front, some additional ones in the back if you need them, but I'm fine with just my basic 8 inputs. Got this for my trigger brain, tom 1, 2, 3, 4, snare, and the 2 overheads. And lastly, my computer setup. Just have a Dell computer. I got it from Best Buy a few years ago. And the software that I'm using to record is Reaper. So a lot of people have been hopping over to Reaper. It's great, it's free, you can still pay for it. And it just seems so much more, like, user-friendly than Pro Tools was. I used Pro Tools, ever since I started recording at home. And I just could not get the hang of it. I always felt like I was going to mess something up. The moment I downloaded Reaper and tried it, it was amazing. Just phenomenal recording experience. It's easy to use once you get the hang of the basic stuff and like their terminology. And it's just, and it's just so much more user-friendly than Pro Tools is. So I recorded my last album on Reaper, and punching in, everything like that was just so good. So that is about it for my walkthrough. As a quick rundown of everything, got the Sabian cymbals, Remo heads, Mapex drums, the sledgehammer snare, Audix microphones, Reaper, Alesis DM5 trigger brain, I don't even think I said that, and the Audiobox interface. Just as a quick little bonus item here, I was at Target a few months ago and saw they had these cool little storage drawers. They're like $6 or $7 each, so I picked up 3 of them. They're cool, they just stack on top of each other. And I just happened to, have all my extra stuff instead of having it lay around everywhere. So on the top I just have, it's wires and splitters and stuff. All my extra cables and this guy. And extra hardware in case something breaks, or just extra stuff, especially these little felt things here for the cymbals. So, there you guys go. I hope you enjoyed this. A little more in depth than my other videos have been. A little more to take in. So if you guys have any questions, leave me a comment below. I'll have some links to the music in the description below as well, so hopefully you guys have a great rest of the week, have a great summer, and I'll catch you guys later. See ya!